Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the OK program, which is a local program that talks about pesticides on the back of the news about decontamination. What is it? Why is it important? As well as some FDA concerns about some unapproved products and how that's affecting their future sales. On the line is Dan Kimmis, our CBD correspondent with Good CBD Products. So let's just jump right into, establishing a baseline understanding of what is contaminated cannabis. Joints that have mold in it. I'm sure you've seen the billboards, Dan, that says mold to gold. They'll buy your moldy flower, turn it into extracts or pre-rolls. And so there's a lot more awareness now about what's in this, medicinal product. It's become a lot more recreation, but through the data, it's not even being inferred on. The data is showing us that a lot of people are buying cannabis in the rec market for medicinal purposes, and that's going to cause some issues like we've seen with the FDA warnings, as well as the test results from the OK program that shows July having some products that have failed, and it's starting to become Groundhog's Day with pre-rolls and concentrates, getting nailed. So there's there's a pre-roll, a cartridge, and a concentrate that all ended up failing test results from the OK program recently here in July.
If you're not familiar, the OK program, essentially it's a local standard put together by a top-end crew to make sure that what you're burning is, safe. And it's been very interesting to watch essentially self-regulation crop up and then to see it be effective and to see the outcome of, we'll say, how many careless actors, or I'm not going to label them bad actors, but I will say sloppy, there are in the market.
Yeah, so to elaborate on contaminated cannabis, this Yahoo Finance article goes in to say that a cannabis product may fail containment testing as it has unsafe levels of microbials, heavy metals, or pesticides. So among microbials, the most common is powdery mildew or mold. Another risk is aspergillus, or a bile-tolerant gram-negative bacteria, and both have a dangerous effect on human health. And so that's exactly what happened with these OK program failures. There's a correction. It's actually, there's a concentrate that failed due to pesticides. The pre-roll failed due to microbials, and then another pre-roll failure from pesticides. So there's definitely a trend where products are failing that you can't see. You can't see the bud inside a pre-roll. You can't see inside a cartridge. And so it's really not philanthropic. These people may be putting this out by accident. But if you test your own stuff, this shouldn't be something that is a surprise when it's taken off the shelf of a retail store and then tested. That's inexcusable. And a lot of these companies have had two reactions. One, they blame somebody else and kick the can down the road, and that's never a good result. And the one more positive result we've seen is people who take the accountability, fully embrace it, and say sorry. Alec Langston of Dockside Cannabis was saying as, quote, "We're not judged based on our failures, but how we respond to them." And I think that's exactly what we've seen here. Those that kick the can down the road get backlash, and those that embrace it and say that we'll try to fix it any step of the way, however we can, even if it's not their fault. If they buy the product from someone else, they'll still resolve it. And that's a lot better of a response.
Accountability, right? Again, we've all been there, where you have a choice to make in real time. Stepping up and standing up is the kind of people you want to do business with.
And we're starting to see the industry being treated a little bit more normal. Back in the day, there was some ridiculous IP theft with regards to, Reese's and the Hershey companies having companies that bid off of those. More recently, it's with Gorilla Glue. And even more recently with the lawsuit that we saw with LaCroix Beverage having some short sellers suing them to talk about the synthetic terpenes versus natural terpenes. Now we're seeing the FDA warning Curaleaf about marketing. And so, you get this indica and sativa effect. And when you try and describe that as a euphoric, energetic uplifting, what you're doing is you're telling the people.
You're giving an indication of an effect, right? Again, use this for pain. You can't say that. You can't say it.
So you sent me an article, Dan. Like, what is the result if you end up talking about effects and things that you're not allowed to do or say? That has dire consequences on business.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's just take the Curaleaf thing that happened last week. Okay. So last week, Curaleaf got a letter from the FDA that said, you're selling CBD illegally online and you are making claims. You have products labeled things like, this tincture for chronic pain, use this to help you sleep, take this, give this to your pet to help their anxiety. All of those are claims. Here's the outcome. Within days, okay, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens are all talking about pulling you from the shelves. I think CVS has already pulled them. Rite Aid and Walgreens are literally in the process. So I'm the CBD correspondent for the Talking Hedge, and one of the things I do is go into the field. So today I am going to go into the local Kroger and Fred Meyer's and see how they're reacting. In that last week, they had CBD kiosks inside their pharmacies. Let's see if they still have those there today. That's how fast this market is moving, and that's how calamitous or chaotic these kinds of illustrative examples are in real time.
So it'd be interesting to see if Walgreens and Rite Aid and CVS end up discontinuing the product or just taking it off the shelf until the product has been replaced with packaging that doesn't give effects or, talk about, language that isn't allowed by the FDA. If they end up losing those accounts, it could be a death nail. I mean, you look at Elon Musk, he smoked a $20 million blunt. That was the equivalent to market cap as it dipped from investors who didn't appreciate what he was doing. I think we'll see some similar backlash because this is huge. Rather than Elon Musk smoking a blunt and you having an opinion about it, that really didn't affect Tesla sales versus having all of your products pulled from national store chains could be a death nail to any company. And being publicly traded, as we've seen with Curaleaf's multiple $800 or $900 million acquisitions recently on the West Coast, they can't afford not to have sales to appease those new shareholders.
And again, we'll put it in simple terms. You look like a klutz, right? You look silly, and again, very damaging just with regards to trend lines.
Right. And it's not good to have all of these products fail. I know that the margins are low and people are using products that they shouldn't. I had switched my own preference to going out and buying rec, going back to the, we'll call it the medical market, where a friend of mine is growing organic, outdoor, pesticide-free cannabis. So it's my trusted grower, and that's not in the rec stores for the most part. So when I'm looking at all of these, joint failures for mold and the cartridge failures, there was a herbicide that was used, Eagle 20, back in November that really started to have me kind of focus on these pesticide-free and organic strains, because when Eagle 20 is heated up in a vape pen, which was my preferred convenient, method, that turns into a carcinogen. Eagle 20 is not something, that herbicide is not something that you want to put in your product. And, that carcinogen is obviously not good for you, and neither is mold. And so if you don't have the people's peace of mind and trust, then your brand is worth nothing. And it's affecting the overall industry to the point where we need retailers like Uncle Likes in Seattle, who started this OK Cannabis program, to verify that products on the shelf were safe for consumption. And we're finding out every single month that this same kind of products are coming up. So it seems to me that the trend is that the failure rates are consistent, and I'm not sure that it's a lack of awareness. I think it's based on just grabbing what they can and using it and hoping that they can get away with it. That's my opinion.
But, well, full disclosure, Uncle Ike's is my store. I know the crew that runs it, and I see them as ahead of the curve. I've been into over 1,500 stores in the last couple of years. So, it's not to say my opinion counts, but my opinion counts, okay? And here's the thing. What's interesting is, you're touching on it. I like to look at the glass half full. I can't imagine somebody making an active choice to, sell bad product. And yet at the same time, the business reality is a lot of these businesses are in the margin. You're staring at a crop that if you don't sell, will take your farm down. And if you do sell, who knows what's going to happen. I personally, I think it's unfortunate that we do have to consider that, yeah, sometimes some of those people make those decisions. And ultimately, I just feel really fortunate to be in a place where Uncle Ike's is who I buy my cannabis from.
So to wrap this up, Curaleaf said that they're committed to being an ethical and responsible company and working with the FDA to be a leader in the industry, setting the standards and guidelines to best service their customers and the communities that they serve. Maybe it's important to have additional employees on the board for advising or consulting, making sure that quality assurance is there, because sometimes in your own routine, you're in a bubble and things can pass you by. But ultimately, having the testing requirements in place where maybe Washington is falling behind, new emerging states should definitely be looking at these trends of pesticides and mold and try to head that off, because the next probably phase is going to be lawsuits as these trends continue.
Well, here's the thing, Cron. I think you're dead on with it. It goes like this. Nobody wants bad lettuce, right? And you can really extend that analogy right over to your cannabis or your extracts or your gummy. And this is where, again, as an industry, one of the things that's interesting is all the money that's in the industry and people being like, oh, yeah, we should probably do some testing.
Right. Even comparing, a Burger King or Jack in the Box back in the day that had E. coli, that was crazy for their sales. Burger King's recently filed bankruptcy. They're no longer publicly traded. Jack in the Box has recovered brilliantly after the E. coli. So it's possible. It's just a matter of how you respond to these mistakes. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.